Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah.
Praise Allah. We seek assistance and forgiveness from Allah, and we seek refuge in Allah from our lower selves and from the wrongs that we sometimes commit. Whoever Allah guides, no one can misguide, and whoever Allah leaves astray, no one can guide. And we bear witness that there is none worthy of worship besides Allah, the one who is unique and has no partners. And we bear witness that the Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is Allah's servant and messenger. قال الله تعالى في القرآن الكريم, Allah says in the Holy Quran, وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا أَنفَقُوا لَمْ يُسْرِفُوا وَلَمْ يُقْتَرُوا وَكَانَ بَيْنَ ذَلِكَ قَوَّامًا. The Quran says then, the Quran promotes the idea of living life with moderation, right? Because Allah says that those who are truly believers, they spend moderately and they don't waste either. But there is a balance between the two. There is no extremes, in other words. So that's what we want to focus on talking today as one of the tools for Ramadan, is how do we, what is the attitude that we should have towards our food, towards the things that we sacrifice, and even towards our ibadah, right? According to the tradition of the Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, خَيْرُ الْأُمُورِ أَوْسَطُهَا or خَيْرُ الْأُمُورِ الْوَسَطِ, that the best part to take in any aspect of your life is the middle part. In other words, moderation. If we read through the Quran also, we see that one of the themes of the Quran is this moderation and the link between moderation and personal justice or social justice even. So that's what we want to talk about today. So it is a general rule in the Quran, so the principle also can be applied to all aspects of your life. So when it comes to giving charity, especially now within the month of Ramadan, and spending, we do not overspend, but we keep something for a rainy day. So in other words, for example, when we talk about love, right, we're saying that we should all give love. It's common now these days to talk about love is something that you give and it's not something that you receive. But if you don't have enough love for yourself, if you're not loving your nearest, your next of kin first, where does the love come from that we can give to others? So the same with charity. Therefore Islam only says 2% of your earnings you should give for zakah. We need to spend. The Quran also says, and do not make your hands tied to your neck like a miser, nor stretch it forth to its utmost reach, so that you become blameworthy or destitute. So clearly the Quran is saying that don't give so much, right, that you don't have anything left for yourself. That sounds foolish. Then the Quran says, يَا بَنِي آدَمَ خُذُوا زِينَتَكُمْ عِنْدَ كُلِّ مَسْجِدٍ وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. O children of Adam, wear your beautiful apparel at any time and place, even when you visit the mosques. And eat and drink, but waste not by excess, for Allah loves not those who are the wasters. Right? So even in terms of our clothing, we have to be modest. It doesn't mean that there's a special top that you must wear for salah, and then there is all these glittery clothes that you have to wear when you go to a party. Wear modest. Beautify yourself, the Quran says, when you even go to the mosques. Right? So it doesn't mean you have to look plain Jane when you go to the mosque, because this is now a place where you have to look like that. And eat and drink, but do not waste. Right? So I think that's probably one of the things that we need to remind ourselves about a lot in this Ramadan. Imam Taj was reminding us about it as well, that in Ramadan we're supposed to be spending less money on food, but it seems that our bills are higher in Ramadan. And also the kind of foods that we eat. In our culture we eat very oily foods during Ramadan, right? Maybe we should be conscious about that. And so even apply the rule of modesty when it comes to how we eat. And I speak to myself, for myself. Because it's by Yeswaji, heel dag gepoaser het om die samosa te resist and okay, inshallah, also I'll try. Then the Quran also says, forbidden to you are certain foods. Now, before I read this, we need to understand that within Usul al-Fiqh, the rule is that everything is halal until proven haram. Okay? So, and things, your first source of where you know when something is halal or haram is from the Quran. So in terms of what we eat, the Quran says you are only forbidden to eat dead meat. So if an animal died and it wasn't slaughtered, you're not allowed to eat it. Okay? The flesh of the swine. So it's clear. Whether the thing was cursed or whether it's just because it's one of the animals that human beings consume because it's got the highest content of fat, maybe that's not good fat. But the Quran is clear, we do not eat the flesh of the swine. So we're not going to kick the pig around and we're not going to swear at him. It just said, don't eat it. Okay? And on that which has been invoked the name of other than Allah. So if you know that something has been offered up in the name of another God, then you're not allowed to eat that. Because that's impurity in faith. The meat might not be impure to eat, but the faith is impure. If an animal was strangled to death, right? So you can apparently kill an animal, but before his life, strangle him, but before his life is out, you have to slaughter him. And the purpose of the slaughtering is because there's two types of blood running through an animal's vein. There's the pure blood and there is the bad blood. So we do not know which blood is it that's still in the body. So when you slaughter and you cut the jugular, all the blood gets pumped out of the animal and then you are allowed to eat it. An animal that has been thrown down from a high place or killed with a violent blow, you can also not eat that animal. And then also an animal that has been partly eaten by another animal. But the Quran says you can eat it if you can get to slaughter it in time. Right? And these are all the things that are not allowed. Other than that, you can eat whatever there is to eat. So this also leads us to a different understanding of what it means, what does it mean in terms of halal and haram when it comes to food. Sometimes these days we think that if the animal is slaughtered halal or there is a halal sticker on it, then it's halal. But we forget that, for example, if vegetables, which we just assume by nature it would be halal, but if it was grown on a farmer's farm where he stole the fertilizer, for example, then that vegetable for us is also not halal to eat. So one needs to be very careful and not just make the halal thing about the meat. And so it brings us to the point of our spiritual life. So even in our spiritual life, we have to be moderate. So now when it comes to the month of Ramadan, you see women starting to wear their scarves now, otherwise they would not have done that. Men wear now this beard and they call it the sunnah beard because it's Ramadan. So suddenly we have this heightened sense of piety now. And when Ramadan is over and then it's back to normal. So that doesn't sound moderate. So whatever practice we want to adopt in this Ramadan, we need to make sure that it's something that we will be able to sustain even after Ramadan is completed. It is true that the Nabi Muhammad ﷺ used to increase his ibadat during the month of Ramadan, but it was something that he could manage. It was not that he took it on and the other aspects of his life were suffering. Okay? So let us not become have false piety in this month of Ramadan, but take on things that we can manage. So in order to live a healthy life, we need to ensure that we have given fair attention to all the different aspects of our life, including recreation. So we hear a lot of hadith about the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, how he used to like to play archery. He used to, when Aisha radiallahu anha was still very young, he used to play with her, even when she was still playing with her dolls. He used to run races with her. So he was a fun guy. So it doesn't mean that, if we have to be pious, that we have to be boring. We can also be creative and enjoy the creation. And the Nabi Muhammad ﷺ said, they are losers, those who make religion strenuous. They imperil themselves, who enforce tough practices of Islam, and they destroy themselves, who are extreme. Right? So the Nabi ﷺ was against extremism, even within practicing of the religion of Islam. And then it said in Sahih Bukhari, Islam is easy, and the person who makes it strenuous is a loser. Hence, follow Islam with moderation, be close to it, give glad tidings, follow it in the morning, during the day, and in parts of the night. So basically saying that when you practice Islam, yes, practice it morning, afternoon and evening, but in moderation. You're not going to be sitting on your masalla 24 hours and on branti course of rent batali, so everything in moderation. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Kareem. Truly Allah is the possessor of wealth, the sovereign, the all-good, the one who has authority over us, the all-loving, the all-merciful. So, the ultimate question of moderation is a question of justice. If one does not live in moderation, there are not only consequences for you on a personal level, but also on a social level, right? So just imagine we had a society that was extreme in the things that they do. Obviously, it will affect the society. So the kind of behavior which speaks volume about their gratitude for what Allah has given. So being extreme then questions how grateful are you for the things that Allah has given you. It speaks to care for the limited resources that we have on the earth. So it speaks to how conscious are you about sharing the things that are limited. For example, if you're wasting water, obviously you're not concerned about in other places in the parts of the world where water is scarce. And it also speaks to care for those who need and are not as privileged as us. So let us be conscious about these things during Ramadan. So the Quran also encourages us to take the issue of justice very seriously, and justice always starts with the self. As the Quran says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُونُوا قَوَّامُونَ بِالْقِسْطِ شُهَدَاءَ لِلَّهِ وَلَوْ عَلَى أَنفُسِكُمْ أَوِ الْوَالِدَيْنِ أَوِ الْأَقْرَبِينَ إِنْ يَكُونَ غَنِيًّا أَوْ فَقِيرًا وَاللَّهُ أَوْلَى بِهِمَا فلا تتبعوا الهوى أن تعدلوا وإن تلووا وتعرضوا فإن الله كان بما تعملون خبيرا. O you who believe, stand out firmly for justice as witnesses to Allah, even if it be against yourself. Right? So justice starts at home, starts with you. Or even if it be against your parents. For example, we are taught in Islam that we have to be respectful towards our parents, but if your parents are doing something wrong, you do not have to obey them, and you have a way of also rectifying them. Or even if it be against your kin, your brothers or sisters, or whether it be against rich or poor, because Allah says Allah can protect both. And follow not the lust of your hearts, because when we do that, the Quran says we might swerve from justice or decline to do justice, and verily Allah is well acquainted with the things that we do. So we ask Allah to help us during this month of Ramadan to recognize when we are unjust to ourselves and when that injustice is impacting on our society. We ask Allah to help us to live our lives in moderation and to use this Ramadan as a field where we can practice moderation, and for Allah to help us to not become wasteful and extravagant in the way we live our lives. And we also ask Allah to forgive us our shortcomings and to guide us to live a more fulfilling life in all aspects of our life, inshallah.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله